Hey guys, welcome back to Sleep Among Titans, where we drift through strange and quiet corners of the past perfect for listening before you sleep. Tonight our journey takes us to the heart of power in Tudor England. We are not in the grand throne room nor the boisterous tilt yard. We are in a much more private, more intimate and far more fragrant chamber. Your story begins here in a world of immense luxury and profound unspoken realities. You are Thomas, and you have just been promoted. You're standing in one of the most exclusive rooms in all of Hampton Court Palace. The walls are hung with heavy, magnificent tapestries from Flanders. The wood of the furniture is dark and polished to a deep luster. A silver basin and ewer filled with rose-scented water sit on a nearby table. Your posture is perfect, a model of courtly discipline. Your expression is one of serene neutrality. But in your right hand, held loosely at your side, your fingers are gently, almost imperceptibly crushing a small silver pomander. The pomander is your most essential tool, more important than your courtly manners or your knowledge of Latin. It is a small perforated sphere filled with a potent and eye-wateringly expensive mixture of cloves, ambergris and dried lavender. As you bring your hand to your chin in a gesture you have perfected, a gesture of thoughtful contemplation, you inhale slowly. You are not breathing the air of the room. You're breathing the sharp, sweet, spicy perfume from the silver ball in your palm. This is the first and most important skill you have mastered in your new role, the art of strategic breathing. You need this skill, because while this chamber is a place of immense power, it is also a place of immense presence. The King Henry VIII is a man of great appetites, great humours, and a great and undeniable personal aura. An aura that clings to the velvet drapes, that settles into the thick carpets, that permeates the very air itself. An aura that speaks of a rich diet, a failing body, and a general disregard for the comfort of those around him. Your job requires you to stand at the very centre of this aura for hours on end, and to do so with a look of unwavering pleasant devotion. For you are the Groom of the Stool. It is at once the most sought after and the most secretly ridiculed position for a young nobleman at court. While other men fight for the king's attention in the council chambers or on the battlefield, you have found a more direct path to the monarch's ear. Your proximity to the throne is literal, intimate, and profoundly unglamorous. Your fortitude, your ability to stand here breathing calmly, smiling serenely while lesser men might turn pale and flee, is your greatest asset. It is the strange and sturdy foundation upon which your entire career will be built. Welcome to the court of King Henry VIII, where power is not always found on the great throne of state, but sometimes on the velvet padded seat just beside it. Your appointment to the role of Groom of the Stool was, you recall, a moment of profound and dizzying confusion. You were summoned to the Lord Chamberlain's office, a grand room with dark wood panelling and a stern-looking portrait of the king's father on the wall. You were a young man, then barely 20, fresh to the court and still learning its treacherous currents. The Lord Chamberlain, a man with a face that looked like it had never experienced the emotion of joy, informed you of your new position. He spoke of it in grand, sweeping terms. It was, he said, a sign of the king's immense and personal favour, a role of unparalleled intimacy and trust, a direct path to influence and greatness. He congratulated you, his expression unchanging. You remember bowing your mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. There was a surge of immense pride. You, a junior courtier from a respectable but not overly powerful family, had been chosen. You had been plucked from obscurity and placed at the very centre of the universe. Your father's ecstatic, near incoherent letter of congratulations, which arrived a week later, confirmed the magnitude of the honour. This appointment, he wrote, would secure your family's fortune for a generation. But beneath the pride was a cold, sinking feeling of dread. You knew what the job was. Every young courtier knew. You had heard the crude whispered jokes in the corridors, the snickering behind cupped hands. And as you walked out of the Lord Chamberlain's office, you felt the weight of your new reality settle upon you. You had been granted the most coveted position in England, an honour that none of the other young men who joked about it would ever have the stomach to actually perform. To understand your new life, you must first understand the fundamental law of a royal court. Proximity is power. The closer you are to the physical body of the monarch, the more influential you become. And no one, not the Queen, not the Lord Chancellor, not the Archbishop of Canterbury, is more consistently close or more profoundly private with the king than you are. The great decisions of the kingdom are not always made in the Grand Council chamber, amidst a crowd of arguing advisers. The king is a performer, and the council chamber is his stage. But in the quiet, unguarded moments away from the public eye, the mask of majesty slips. In the privy chamber, the king is not just a monarch. He is a man with moods, with discomforts, with private thoughts and secret fears, and you are always there. You are the sole, silent audience to the man behind the crown. You become the ultimate gatekeeper. A powerful duke might wait for weeks to secure a formal audience, but a minister with an urgent piece of news learns to approach you first. They learn to ask with practiced subtlety about the king's mood. Is His Majesty in a receptive disposition this morning, Thomas, they will ask. You become a human barometer for the political climate of the entire kingdom. Your simple, quiet response, His Majesty rested well, or His Majesty is feeling the damp in his leg, today can determine whether a new tax is proposed, a treaty is signed, or a war is postponed. And then there is the privy purse. You're not just the guardian of the king's body, you're the keeper of his personal finances. You do not handle the great matters of state revenue, but you control the king's private cash box. It is you who pays his tailors for a new suit of gold-threaded silk. It is you who pays his jewelers for a ruby necklace destined for a certain lady in waiting. It is you who discreetly settles his gambling debts after a late night of cards. You know his vanities, his indiscretions, and his secret generosities, because you are the one who signs the receipts. Your small leather-bound ledger contains more secrets than the entire spy network of the French ambassador. To navigate this strange world of immense power and intimate squalor, you have assembled your own set of essential tools. Your silver pomander is your shield, a constant source of clean, sharp, spicy air in a world that is often anything but. You find you have developed a connoisseur's appreciation for the work of London's perfumers. You are never without a fine linen handkerchief, always scented with lavender oil. You have used your access to the privy purse to ensure that the court has a seemingly inexhaustible supply. You have single-handedly made the lavender farmers of Kent very prosperous men. Your most important piece of armour, however, is your neutral expression. You have spent hours practicing it in a polished silver plate. It is a masterpiece of non-commitment. It must convey serene competence, unwavering loyalty, and absolutely nothing else. It must not betray disgust when you are performing your duties. It must not betray amusement when you hear a particularly juicy piece of gossip from the king's own lips. And it must not betray terror when you overhear him casually mention his displeasure with a powerful man whose execution you may have to witness next week. You are standing now by the velvet-padded close stool waiting for the king's arrival. Your pomander is in your pocket ready. Your scented handkerchief is in your sleeve. Your neutral expression is firmly in place. You are not just a servant. You are the king's shadow, the silent partner, in the strange, intimate and deeply unglamorous business of running a kingdom. The morning begins, as it always does, with a series of grand and public performances. You are a silent background figure during the formal waking and dressing of the king, a ceremony attended by a crowd of hopeful nobles. You are a shadow during his breakfast, and a ghost during his morning prayers in the royal chapel. These are the public rituals, the theatre of monarchy designed to awe and impress. But you know that the real business of the day, the true work of the kingdom, often begins when these performances are over. After his prayers, the king retreats to his private apartments, and a select few are granted the immense privilege of following him. Today, the Lord Chancellor, a man of immense power and severe expression, is granted this honour. He walks with the king, speaking in low, urgent tones. You follow a few respectful paces behind, carrying the silver basin and a stack of fresh lavender-scented linen towels. You are heading for the king's true office, his inner sanctum, the place where the great mask of majesty is for a time set aside the privy chamber. You enter the chamber. It is a masterpiece of comfort and luxury. The walls are hung with thick tapestries that depict heroic hunting scenes, their rich colours absorbing the sound and creating an intimate, hushed atmosphere. The air is thick with the scent of the expensive imported incense that you had lit just an hour before. In the centre of the room, looking for all the world like a throne, is the close stool, a formidable piece of furniture carved from dark oak and padded with rich red velvet. You perform your initial duties with the quiet, practiced efficiency that has earned you this position. You pour the warm, rose-scented water into the basin. You lay out the towels. The king dismisses the other attendants with a wave of his hand, but you remain. You are part of the room's essential furniture. The king settles himself onto his second throne, lets out a contented sigh, and the most important meeting of the day begins. The Lord Chancellor, one of the most powerful men in England, stands before his seated monarch, his face a carefully composed mask of respectful deference. But you, a student of human nature, can see the subtle signs of his discomfort. You see the way his eyes avoid looking directly at the king, instead fixing on a point on the tapestry just over the king's shoulder. You see how he holds his own scented handkerchief in his hand, occasionally raising it to his mouth as if to stifle a cough. He's a great statesman, but even he is not entirely at ease in this unique and pungent seat of power. The reports from the Scottish border are troubling, Your Majesty. The Chancellor begins his voice a low, serious rumble. There have been further raids. They grow bolder. The Earl of Northumberland requests more men and more funds to fortify the garrison at Berwick. The king grunts a non-committal sound. He is listening, but his attention is also elsewhere. While the Lord Chancellor discusses the intricate details of troop movements and military budgets, you're engaged in your own silent parallel duties. You carefully and silently fold a used towel. You discreetly add a few more drops of scented oil to a small bowl on a nearby table, a quiet act of atmospheric maintenance. Your mundane, intimate actions form the quiet soundtrack to a discussion of national security. The Chancellor moves on to the matter of a new tax on wool, detailing the projected revenues and the grumblings of the merchant guilds. He speaks of geopolitical alliances, of the shifting moods of the French king and the Holy Roman Emperor. The fate of nations is being debated in this small, warm and very private room. After a long while, the king shifts his great weight on the velvet seat. He has heard the reports. Now he needs intelligence of a different kind. He turns his head not to his Lord Chancellor, but slightly towards you. Thomas. He grunts, his voice a low rumble. Your Majesty. You reply, your own voice a perfect model of calm neutrality. The Chancellor speaks of the merchants. But what of the common men? What is the mood in the taverns of London? Are they grumbling about this new tax? This is your moment. The Lord Chancellor can provide reports and revenue figures, but you, through your network of other household servants, through the gossip of the guards and the kitchen staff, you know what the city is actually feeling. You possess a different kind of knowledge. You do not offer an opinion. You offer a simple, undeniable fact. Your Majesty. You say, your eyes respectfully downcast. The talk among the yeomen of the guard is that the price of a pint of ale has risen by a farthing at the taverns near the river. The new tax is blamed. It is a simple statement delivered without judgment, but it gives the king a more honest and useful picture of the situation on the ground than all of the Chancellor's carefully prepared scrolls. The king lets out another grunt, this one of understanding. He has his answer. He has heard from his government, and he has heard from his people all through you. The Chancellor shoots you a quick, sharp look. It is a look of surprise, of annoyance that you possessed information he did not, and a new grudging respect. He is realizing, perhaps for the first time, that the quiet, unassuming young man who handles the king's towels is not just a body servant. He is an ear to the ground. He is an informal but vital part of the king's government. The king's business, both public and private, is concluded. He rises, and you move forward to assist him with the basin and the final towel. The meeting is over. The Lord Chancellor bows deeply and retreats, his face a mask of complex emotions. You're left to perform the final, unglamorous parts of your duty. You have just provided crucial intelligence during a high-level government briefing, and you have done it all without ever leaving the king's private bathroom. You reflect, not for the first time, that the path to power and influence in this kingdom is not always paved with gold or glory, but sometimes with the simple, humble, and deeply undeniable realities of the human body. Your morning of high politics and intimate statecraft in the privy chamber is complete. You leave the opulent royal apartments, your mind a quiet ledger of the king's moods, his secrets, and his bowel movements. Your next duty takes you on a journey to an entirely different and rarely seen part of the palace. You leave behind the world of perfumed corridors, hushed whispers, and velvet drapes, and you descend. You walk down narrow, winding stone staircases through corridors where the air grows warmer and damper. The scent of incense and beeswax gives way to the sharp, clean smell of lye soap and the humid, earthy scent of vast quantities of wet linen. The soundscape changes too. The silence of the court is replaced by the distant, cheerful chatter of working women and the rhythmic, percussive sound of wooden paddles beating against wet cloth. You have arrived at the royal laundry. This is the engine room of the palace's opulence, a vast, steamy and chaotic workshop where a small army of women wages a constant, unending war against the grime and stains of the Tudor court. As you enter the head laundress, a formidable woman named Meg with a perpetually red face and arms as strong as oak branches seize you and calls for silence. The chatter and the beating stop. The women, their hands raw and wrinkled from the hot water, all turn and give you a deep, respectful curtsy. You are a rare sight in this part of the palace. A high-ranking courtier, a nobleman, the king's own intimate. They look at you with a unique mixture of emotions that you've become very familiar with. There is awe because you walk with the king, and there is a deep, world-weary and almost profound pity because they, more than anyone else in this palace, understand the true material nature of your daily duties. They deal with the consequences. Master Thomas Meg says, wiping her wet hands on her apron. Her tone is respectful, but there is no fawning deference in it. She's a professional, the general of this steamy, soapy army, and you're here for a battlefield report. You follow her through the great laundry. Women stand over enormous wooden tubs, scrubbing furiously. Others stir great bubbling cauldrons of water heated over roaring fires. The air is so thick with steam it's like walking through a warm cloud. Meg leads you to a table where a pile of freshly laundered but still problematic linen is laid out for your inspection. This is the reason for your visit. She points to the king's bedsheets. The usual mixture of lye urine and hard scrubbing has proven insufficient, sir, she says, her voice low and clinical. The sheets have weathered a particularly vigorous campaign against what the physicians call the king's rebellious humours. The stains are deeply entrenched. She then gestures to one of the king's magnificent velvet doublets, the very one he wore to a great banquet 2 nights ago. And here she says with a sigh, the fortifications of the midsection were breached by a determined assault of gravy and wine. The velvet is a delicate fabric. A direct attack with the lye soap will ruin the nap. It requires a more diplomatic solution. She looks at you, her expression grim. And the scent, Master Thomas. The lavender water is fighting a valiant battle, but I fear it is a losing one. My resources are stretched thin. I need more supplies if we are to win this war. You listen to this report with the same solemn attention you gave the Lord Chancellor this morning. His concerns were of border raids and taxes. Meg's concerns are of stubborn stains and dwindling soap supplies. In the grand scheme of keeping the king happy and the kingdom running, you are not entirely sure which is more important. This is where your unique power comes into play. The royal household has its own budget, a slow and cumbersome thing controlled by fussy bureaucrats. But you as the groom of the stool control the king's privy purse, his personal nearly limitless cash box. You can bypass the bureaucracy. You can get things done. You inspect the stained velvet, your expression serious. You're no longer just Thomas the courtier. You're now the quartermaster general of the laundry brigade. Meg, you say, your voice calm and authoritative. You will have double the usual shipment of lye from the soap boiler on London Bridge. Have it delivered by tomorrow. I will authorise the payment myself. A look of immense relief washes over her face. Furthermore, you continue send a runner to the French merchant in Cheapside. He is to deliver his entire stock of fine perfumed soap, the kind made with olive oil. Tell him the purse is the king's, and he is not to sell it to anyone else. You turn to the problem of the scent. Have the head gardener deliver 3 times the usual allotment of dried lavender, rosemary and mint from the Queen's own private gardens. Inform him that it is for the king's personal comfort and the matter is urgent. Meg's face is now beaming. She looks at you with the pure, undiluted respect of one professional for another. You're not some frivolous lord who doesn't understand the realities of her work. You understand the logistics of her battle, and you have provided her with the reinforcement she needs. You give her a final commanding nod and take your leave. You walk out of the steamy, chaotic, but deeply efficient world of the laundry and ascend back to the quiet, perfumed corridors of the court. You have not debated military strategy. You have not drafted a new law, but you have ensured that the King of England will have clean, sweet-smelling sheets to sleep on tonight. You reflect on the strange dual nature of your power. It extends from the highest, most abstract secrets of state down to the most mundane, practical necessities of life. You are the man who gets things done, whether that means deciphering the king's mood for a nervous ambassador or securing an emergency shipment of soap for a beleaguered laundress. And in the complex day-to-day reality of this palace, you're beginning to suspect that it is often the latter that is the more difficult and the more deeply appreciated accomplishment. Your power in the palace is a strange and paradoxical thing. It is immense, yet it is almost entirely invisible. It is rooted not in titles or lands, but in something far more fundamental, your constant intimate proximity to the king. And this proximity has a price. It surrounds you day and night with a unique and powerful aura, and not just one of authority. You become acutely aware of it as you move through the crowded chambers of the court. There is the scent you carry. It is not an unpleasant smell, not to your practiced nose. You are, after all, a master of olfactory defense. You are a walking testament to the power of French perfumes, lavender water, and the potent spicy magic of your silver pomander. But beneath these pleasant layers there is something else. It is the faint, unmistakable, and deeply institutional smell of the privy chamber. A complex bouquet of medicinal herbs, old velvet, and the undeniable earthy realities of the king's private life. And this scent creates a remarkable social phenomenon. As you walk through a crowded room, a small invisible bubble of personal space magically forms around you. Other courtiers, who will happily press shoulder to shoulder to get closer to a duke or an ambassador, instinctively give you a wider berth. They do not jostle you. They do not lean in to whisper a piece of gossip. They part before you like the Red Sea before Moses. In a way, it is a curse. It is a constant physical reminder that you are different, set apart, defined by your unglamorous but essential function. But in the crush and press of court life, you have come to regard it as a secret blessing. You're never bothered by the tedious fawning sycophants who swarm around other men of influence. No one ever claps you on the shoulder in a display of false friendship. Your personal space is sacrosanct. You are at once the most infamous and the most unbothered man at court. You learn that the entire court now treats you in one of two ways, depending on their ambition and the strength of their own stomachs. The first group are the old guard, the proud, arrogant nobles who see only the base nature of your duties. They see your role as a degradation, a stain upon your noble birth. You encounter one such man, the aging Earl of Shrewsbury, in a corridor. He needs to ask you a question about the king's schedule for the hunt tomorrow, a matter you control. He approaches you, his back stiff with aristocratic pride. The entire time he speaks to you, he holds a perfumed silk handkerchief to his nose, dabbing at it delicately as if to ward off an unpleasant smell. His words are impeccably polite, but his posture, his averted eyes, his fluttering handkerchief, they all scream his disgust. You do not let it bother you. You maintain your perfect neutral expression. You understand that his disgust is simply a mask for his fear. He despises you because he cannot comprehend your power. He's terrified of the intimacy you share with the king, an intimacy he can never hope to achieve. You answer his questions with calm, efficient politeness, secretly enjoying the fact that he must humble himself to ask you for information. The second group are the truly ambitious. They are the ones who understand where real power lies. They see past the unpleasantness of your duties and see only your unparalleled access. They treat you like a prince. They approach you with deep, respectful bows. They compliment the cut of your doublet. They inquire after the health of your family. Their flattery is as thick and as sweet as honey. Their goal, however, is always the same. After a suitable period of praise, they will lean in their voices, dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Master Thomas. They will say, I hear His Majesty has been in excellent spirits lately. If you should find a convenient moment, a moment where he is feeling particularly receptive, perhaps you might mention my petition for the lands in Sussex. You have become a master of the non-committal response. His Majesty's humours are his own. My lord, you will reply with a serene smile, but I will of course be sure to attend him with my fullest diligence. It is a beautiful sentence that promises nothing, and it is your greatest defence against the endless tide of requests. The most difficult encounters, however, are with those who were once your peers. One afternoon you see Edward, a young baron you grew up with, a friend from a time before your strange promotion. He approaches you with a wide, genuine smile, ready to joke and gossip as you once did. Thomas, he says warmly, I haven't seen you for an age. Tell me, what have you been up to? Still enjoying the glamour of the court. The simple, friendly question hangs in the air between you, suddenly impossible to answer. The smile on Edward's face begins to falter as he notices the faint but distinct scent of your office. He sees the new practiced stillness in your posture. He sees the unreadable neutral mask that has become your face, and he realizes you are not the same man he used to know. The conversation becomes stilted, awkward. He tries to tell you a funny story about a mishap at the tilt yard, but the joke falls flat in the face of your serene composure. He asks you about your day, and you are struck silent. You cannot possibly tell him the truth. You cannot say, well, Edward, I began the morning by discussing the threat of a Spanish alliance with the king while he sat on his commode. and then I spent a very productive hour in a high-level logistical meeting with the head laundress concerning a critical shortage of lye soap. Your life is now completely, utterly unrelatable. The silence stretches. Edward shuffles his feet, suddenly desperate to be somewhere else. He makes a clumsy excuse about needing to see the master of the horse, and with a final awkward nod, he flees. You are left standing alone in the corridor. The invisible, isolating bubble of your office has settled around you once more, and you realize the true price of your proximity to the king. It is a profound and unbridgeable distance from everyone else. Your unique position has made you a species of one. You're not truly a nobleman anymore, nor are you merely a servant. You are something else entirely, a secret third category in the rigid hierarchy of the court. You are the king's shadow, and shadows by their very nature must always walk alone. The years of your service pass, each one marked by the turning of the seasons and the slow, inexorable turning of the political tides. You are no longer the nervous young man who first accepted this strange honour. You're a seasoned professional, a master of your craft. You can read the king's moods in the set of his jaw, you can predict a political storm from a single misplaced word in the privy chamber, and your relationship with the royal laundry is one of mutual hard-won respect. You have survived plots, outlasted rivals, and have become one of the most permanent and trusted fixtures of the court. But as you have grown in confidence and influence, the king, your master, has also grown. Immensely. The magnificent athletic monarch of the Field of the Cloth of Gold is now a distant, almost mythical memory. In his place is an older man, a man of enormous ponderous bulk, his body, a testament to a lifetime of gargantuan appetites. A persistent weeping ulcer on his leg, a wound from a long-ago jousting accident, has made movement difficult and often excruciatingly painful. The king's great size, coupled with his great pain, has transformed the very nature of your duties. Your job is no longer just about secrets and smells. It has become a daily exercise in physics, logistics, and creative engineering. Every simple act that a normal man takes for granted, standing up, sitting down, walking from one room to another, the simple act of getting dressed has become a major tactical operation, requiring a team of men, a careful plan, and your quiet, authoritative direction. The morning dressing ceremony at the lever is no longer a swift public display of majesty. It is a slow, careful, and private ballet of immense effort. You are the choreographer of this ballet. You do not perform the heavy lifting yourself. That is for the junior attendants, strong young men chosen for their brawn as much as their noble birth. Your role is to direct them to ensure the entire operation proceeds with maximum efficiency and minimum discomfort to the king. You stand by your voice, a low, calm murmur as the performance begins. Gently now on the left side, John. William, support His Majesty's shoulder. That's it. All together now. Lift. Getting the fine cambric shirt over the king's head and around his great torso is the first challenge, a maneuver, requiring two men working in perfect synchrony. But the true test is the doublet and hose. Helping the king to his feet is the first hurdle, a slow, groaning process. Then the attendants must carefully guide his massive legs into the silk hose and ease the heavy brocaded doublet around his immense frame, all while being exquisitely careful of the painful ulcer on his thigh. Mind the leg, lads, you murmur. Mind the leg. To aid in this monumental task, you have recently consulted with the Royal Engineers. The result is a new standing chair, a marvel of Tudor technology with a clever system of padded levers and supports that can assist in lifting the king to a vertical position. You have a quiet pride in this invention. It has made the morning significantly less perilous for everyone involved. And of course, the challenges of the king's great size extend directly to your own primary domain, the privy chamber. The elegant velvet padded close stool of his youth, a fine piece of Italian craftsmanship, has long since been retired to a royal storeroom. In its place, you have had to commission a new one. It is a masterpiece of reinforced English oak, its seat wider, its padding thicker, its legs braced with iron. It is less a piece of furniture and more a permanent stationary throne, a fortress of comfort and stability, built to withstand a siege. You have secretly nicknamed it Great Harry. The journey from the bedchamber to the privy chamber, a distance of no more than 20 paces, is now a carefully planned expedition. It requires two attendants walking on either side of the king, their shoulders braced to support his weight, while you walk ahead, clearing the path, ensuring the door is open and the destination is prepared. You reflect sometimes on how your role has evolved. In your early years, your greatest challenges were political and social deciphering whispers, navigating the ambitions of other courtiers. Now you find yourself having serious practical discussions with carpenters about load-bearing joints, and with blacksmiths about the tensile strength of reinforced hinges. You have become an expert not just in secrets, but in structural engineering. The expedition is successful. The king is settled safely upon Great Harry. The other attendants bow and retreat, leaving you alone to your duties. The physical exertion of the morning is over for now. You and your team have once again successfully moved the mountain. You discreetly crush the pomander in your hand, take a slow, strategic breath of cloves and ambergris, and assume your familiar post. The more traditional political and olfactory part of your workday can now begin. Your life as the king's shadow is a study in contrasts. 1 hour you are the silent witness to a secret treaty negotiation that could change the map of Europe. The next, you're engaged in the complex logistical problem of moving the king's great body from one chair to another. Your power is abstract and immense, while your duties are concrete and at times profoundly earthy. As the years pass and the king ages, this strange duality only deepens, particularly as your role expands into the realm of medicine. The royal physicians are, of course, the most learned medical men in the kingdom. They're a solemn flock of men in dark robes who speak fluent Latin, who can quote Galen from memory, and who can discourse for hours on the 4 bodily humours: blood phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. When the king's health falters, as it so often does now, they are summoned. You have become a silent observer of their strange and formal rituals. They will stand in a semicircle around the king, who sits grimacing in pain in his great reinforced chair. They do not touch him. Their examination is one of respectful, distant observation. They will look at the colour of his skin. They will ask him to show them his tongue. They will inquire at great length about the nature of his sleep, his appetite, and the balance of his humours. After much stroking of beards and quiet, important-sounding murmuring, they will offer a diagnosis. It is a surfeit of the phlegmatic humour, your majesty, aggravated by a dampness in the air. Or the blood is clearly too hot. A course of bleeding is required to restore balance. You stand by holding the basin and the linen cloths, your face a perfect mask of neutral competence. And you listen to their learned theories, knowing that they have very little to do with the grim physical reality of the situation. You know more about the king's health than they ever will, for you deal not in theories, but in the daily practical consequences. The source of most of the king's suffering and the focus of your most difficult duties is the great weeping ulcer on his leg. It is a stubborn, angry affliction from a long-ago jousting accident that has refused to heal for decades. It is the true secret ruler of the court, for its state dictates the king's mood, and the king's mood dictates the fate of everyone around him. The wound has its own presence, a heavy, cloying, and deeply unhealthy atmosphere that the physicians, in their abstract way, call a foul miasma, or a malignant vapour. You, in the privacy of your own mind, have come to think of it as the dragon. It is a beast that lives on the king's own body, a creature of pain and fire that you must fight every single day. While the physicians prescribe treatments based on astrology and ancient texts, you're the man on the front lines waging a practical sensory war. Your morning ritual now includes not just the privy chamber, but the dressing of the wound. You have become an unwilling expert, a battlefield surgeon in a war against decay. Your weapons are simple and earthy. First, you cleanse the area with cloths soaked in strong warm wine. The sharp alcoholic scent is your first volley in the battle of smells, a temporary victory against the dragon's foul breath. Then you prepare the poultice. You have your own small collection of mortars and pestles for this purpose. You have learned through trial and error which combinations work best. Not to heal the wound, you know, with a deep, sad certainty, that it will never truly heal, but to soothe it, to clean it, to lessen the king's pain, if only for a few hours. You mix thick golden honey for its cleansing properties with the powdered roots of the comfrey plant. You add fragrant crushed herbs, thyme, marjoram, rosemary, not just for their healing reputation, but for their scent. Your poultices, with their sweet, earthy perfume of honey and herbs, are your small, fragrant army sent into battle each morning. Some days they achieve a fragile victory, creating a small zone of pleasant, clean fragrance around the king. On other days they are beaten back, a valiant but ultimately losing effort against the sheer, undeniable power of the king's affliction. You are the one who applies these poultices with a gentle touch. You are the one who wraps the leg in strips of the finest, softest linen. You do this all with your serene, neutral expression firmly in place, breathing strategically through your mouth, offering quiet, comforting words to the great suffering man who is your king. Through this intimate daily battle, you have gained a knowledge that is deeper than any medical text. You know that the physician's theories on balancing humours are nonsense. You know the truth. You know that a rich meal of roasted swan and a gallon of sweet wine will result in a night of fever and a leg that weeps twice as much the next morning. You know that a simpler meal of baked fish and vegetables will mean a more peaceful night and a calmer wound. You can predict the state of the king's health simply by looking at the menu for a royal banquet. You cannot, of course, contradict the learned physicians directly, but you can use your influence. When the king, in a moment of pain and indecision, asks you what he should eat, you can subtly guide him. The roasted quail is said to be excellent tonight, your majesty, you might say. It is a lighter dish and might prove more agreeable to your digestion. You are practicing medicine through quiet, humble suggestion. You finish your work for the morning. The leg is cleaned and freshly bandaged. The physicians have departed, having prescribed a new and fantastically expensive remedy involving powdered pearls and unicorn horn. You have done the real work. You stand back, your hands smelling of wine and honey and herbs. The king leans back in his chair, a flicker of relief on his face. He is for now a little more comfortable. You are not a doctor. You have no titles, no degrees. But you are the true guardian of the king's physical health. You are the man who battles his dragons, both visible and invisible, every single day. And it is a lonely, thankless, and absolutely essential job. Your life is divided into two distinct realms. The first is the one of public-facing privacy, the world of the king's body, his health, and his immediate physical needs. It is a world of scented water, herbal poultices, and strategic breathing. The second realm is one of true absolute privacy. It is the world of your own small secure office, a privilege granted to you and you alone. It is not a grand chamber. There are no tapestries on the walls, but it has a heavy oak door with a good lock, a sturdy desk, and a large iron-banded chest. The air here does not smell of incense and illness, but of old paper-dry ink and the sharp, clean scent of the beeswax you use to seal the king's private correspondence. This is your other throne room. It is from here that you wield a different and in some ways far greater kind of power. You are the keeper of the privy purse. After a long morning attending to the king's physical needs, you retreat to this sanctuary. You unlock the heavy chest and remove the great leather-bound ledger that is your primary responsibility. This book, more than any other document in the kingdom, tells the true unvarnished story of the king's life. The great chroniclers record his wars and his treaties. The ambassadors report on his public pronouncements. But you, in this quiet room, you record his heart's desires, his private vanities and his secret obsessions. For you are the one who pays for them. You dip your quill in the inkpot and begin the task of balancing the week's accounts. It is a slow, meditative process, and every line item is a secret. Item, you write your handwriting a model of clarity. To the court jeweller for one necklace of freshwater pearls and a single large emerald delivered to the chambers of the Lady Jane Seymour. You blot the ink carefully. You know long before the rest of the court has caught on that the king's favour is shifting once again. You know that Queen Anne's star is fading and a new, quieter, paler star is beginning to rise. The political future of England can be read in the king's choice of gemstones. You turn the page. Item, to the French ambassador's valet the sum of £50 for the settlement of His Majesty's recent losses at cards. You make a quiet note in the margin. The king has been playing frequently with the ambassador, and he has been losing. You know that Henry's pride is as vast as his kingdom, and he hates to lose at anything. This small entry tells you that relations with France are likely to be tense for the next few weeks. You will be sure to subtly advise any ministers seeking French trade agreements to perhaps wait for a more auspicious time. You continue down the list, each entry a quiet revelation, a discreet payment to a musician whose beautiful young wife has recently been asked to sing privately for the king, a generous purse of gold sent to a scholar in Cambridge, a man known for his radical and controversial ideas about translating the Bible into English, a large sum paid to a horse breeder for a new magnificent white stallion, an attempt by the king to recapture the glories of his athletic youth, even though you know his leg will never again allow him to ride in a tournament. You're not merely an accountant, you're a spy master whose intelligence comes not from a network of spies, but from a simple, methodical list of payments. You can trace the rise and fall of great families, the beginning and end of love affairs, and the secret shifting tides of the king's own soul, all by following the trail of his money. The ledger in front of you is the most dangerous and valuable book in the kingdom, and you are its sole keeper. This power you have learned is not just for observing, it is for acting. There is a soft scratch at your door. You blot the ledger, close it, and place it back in the strongbox before calling for the person to enter. It is a young courtier, a boy named Robert from a minor noble family whose job it is to serve as a page in the Queen's household. He's a good, honest boy, but his face is pale with worry. He bows low, his hands twisting the fabric of his cap. He explains his predicament. His ceremonial uniform, which he must wear to serve the Queen at a major feast tomorrow, is threadbare and stained. He has outgrown it. To appear before the court in such shabby clothes would be a deep dishonour to the Queen, and could ruin his chances for advancement. He has petitioned the Master of the Royal Wardrobe for a new one, but the bureaucracy is slow. It will take months. The feast is tomorrow. You listen patiently. You know the Master of the Wardrobe is a difficult, penny-pinching man, but you also know the King hates for his court to appear anything less than magnificent. And you have the means to solve this problem. You rise and unlock a smaller separate cash box. This is the discretionary fund for expenses deemed necessary for the dignity and comfort of the King's court. You take out a few silver coins, enough for a fine new doublet and hose. You press them into the boy's trembling hand. His Majesty. You say, your voice quiet and kind, would not wish for a servant of the Queen to appear in anything but the finest livery. It would reflect poorly on the crown. You choose your words carefully. Consider this a gift from the King's own purse to ensure you can serve him with the proper dignity. The boy stares at the coins, his eyes wide with disbelief and overwhelming gratitude. He tries to thank you, stammering, but you simply give him a calm, reassuring nod and dismiss him. He will go to the royal tailor this very afternoon. He will have a new uniform. He will serve the Queen with pride, and you, for the cost of a few silver coins, have earned his absolute unshakable loyalty for the rest of his life. He will be your eyes and ears in the Queen's household. You have turned the King's money into your own political capital. You return to your desk and close the heavy lid of the strongbox. The ledger of secrets is safe once more. You reflect that while your other duties are tied to the King's body, this duty is tied to his will, to his desires. And in a court full of ambitious men and women, you have learned that to control the purse that pays for a king's desires is to be one of the most powerful and most feared men in the entire kingdom. The rhythm of your life, so long defined by the stone corridors and enclosed courtyards of a single palace, is about to be broken. The king is bored. The summer air has made him restless, and his physicians have advised that a change of scenery would be beneficial for his humours. And so the great decree is made: the court will embark on a royal progress. The official reason given is that the king wishes to grace his most loyal subjects in the southern counties with his presence to see his kingdom and be seen by his people. The unofficial reason, which you and every other long-serving member of the household staff understand, is that the palaces in London are in desperate need of a deep and thorough cleaning, an impossible task when 1,000 courtiers and their servants are living in them. The moment the decree is made, the palace transforms from a centre of government into a state of organised, frantic chaos. It is as if an entire city is preparing to move. Tapestries are rolled, silver is packed in straw-lined chests, and an army of servants scurries about, their faces a mixture of excitement and exhaustion. Every department has its duties. The Master of the Wardrobe is responsible for the King's hundreds of elaborate outfits. The Master of the Jewel House is responsible for the crown jewels. And you are responsible for the most important luggage of all. While others pack the symbols of majesty, you are tasked with packing the reality of the King's private life. Your department, the Office of the Privy Chamber, is now a major logistical operation. Your first and most significant challenge is Great Harry. Your reinforced oak close stool. It cannot simply be tossed into a wagon. It is in its own way a throne, and must be treated with the reverence and care of one. Under your watchful eye, a team of royal carpenters begins the slow, careful process of disassembling it. Each piece the velvet-padded seat. The carved armrests, the heavy oaken frame is carefully wrapped in soft velvet cloths to prevent a single scratch. You have a special dedicated wagon just for this purpose, a heavy cart with extra wheels and a clever suspension system of leather straps designed to give its precious cargo the smoothest possible ride. You find yourself having a very serious 20-minute conversation with the wagon master about the state of the roads to Sussex. Then there are the accoutrements. You personally supervise the packing of the silver basins and ewers, the dozens of linen towels, the sealed flagons of French rosewater, and your entire collection of pomanders and sachets of dried herbs. A large locked chest is filled with the King's various medical supplies, the jars of herbal salves for his leg, the clean bandages, the vials of potions prescribed by the physicians. You're also responsible for the portable privy tent, a magnificent and surprisingly heavy construction of canvas and wood, which must be packed in such a way that it can be deployed with speed and discretion at a moment's notice should the king feel a need while on the road. You have maps, you have schedules, you have a dedicated team of 6 strong servants who answer only to you. You're the quartermaster general of a very small, very specific, and deeply essential army. Finally, the day of departure arrives. The royal progress is a magnificent sight, a mile-long serpent of horses' carriages, wagons and people snaking its way out of London and into the green English countryside. You ride on horseback, a position of honour near the king's own colossal gilded carriage. As you leave the city behind, the air changes. The smell of coal smoke is replaced by the sweet clean scent of hayfields and wildflowers. You watch the rolling green hills, the small peaceful villages with their thatched roof cottages, the peasants who line the road, their faces filled with awe as your great procession passes by. They see the gold and the velvet, the glint of the sun on the armour of the king's guard, the magnificent display of royal power. They see the majesty. They do not see the special unmarked wagon trundling along in the middle of the baggage train carrying its carefully wrapped velvet-padded cargo. They do not know that the true practical comfort of the king rests not in his grand carriage, but in the contents of your humble-looking cart. You know the truth that underpins all this pageantry: a king cannot rule well if he's not comfortable, and ensuring his comfort is your entire world. Even here in the fresh open air of the countryside, your duty is inescapable. When the great procession halts for its midday rest in a quiet meadow, a flurry of activity begins. While some servants set up a magnificent tent for the king's meal, your team springs into action. With the quiet efficiency of a military drill, you direct them to a secluded grove of trees. The portable privy tent is unpacked and erected. A fresh pot of herbs is lit to perfume the air. You ensure everything is perfect. Your office is now open for business even in the middle of a field. The long day of travel ends as you arrive at the great country house of a powerful duke. You are tired from the ride, your muscles aching, but your work is just now beginning. While other courtiers are shown to their rooms to rest and prepare for the evening's feast, you have a more urgent task. You must find the most private, most secure, and most conveniently located chamber in the entire castle, and there you must oversee the careful, reverent reassembly of Great Harry. You stand back and admire the carpenter's work. The king's second throne is ready. You check the supply of towels and scented water. Everything is in its place. You reflect with a weary sigh that you can take the court out of the palace, but you can never truly escape the privy chamber. It is not a room. It is a state of being, a mobile kingdom, of which you are the sole trusted steward, and it is your permanent, inescapable home. The royal progress has been underway for weeks. The court has moved from one great noble house to another, a great glittering parasite consuming the wealth and patience of its hosts. You are now in the north at a vast ancient castle, where a cold, persistent rain has been falling for 3 straight days. The dampness has seeped into the very stones of the castle, and you know with a familiar sense of weary resignation what this means for the king. The damp air aggravates his bad leg and his mood sours with the weather. The feasting and the music of the evening are over. The court has retired to their chambers. The great castle is quiet. You are in your own small cold room preparing for sleep when a sharp rap comes at your door. It is one of the king's personal pages, his face pale in the candlelight. "His Majesty requires you," is all he says. This is not a routine summons. This is a call in the deep of the night. You dress quickly and follow the page through the silent torchlit corridors. You arrive at the king's private bedchamber. It is an enormous room dominated by a great canopied bed and a roaring fire in a hearth large enough to roast a pig. But even the great fire cannot seem to drive out the cavernous chill of the ancient stone walls. The king is not in bed. He is sitting in his great reinforced armchair near the fire, his bandaged leg propped up on a velvet stool. He is not wearing his magnificent robes or his jewels. He is dressed only in a heavy, voluminous linen nightshirt. In the flickering firelight, with his great bulk slumped in the chair and his face etched with pain, he looks not like the powerful King of England. He looks like a large, tired and deeply unhappy old man. He has dismissed his physicians. You see a tray of their untouched remedies on a nearby table. He is tired of their Latin phrases and their useless theoretical cures. He has sent for you. He has sent for the one person whose presence is a practical comfort. You do not speak. You bow and you go about your familiar work. You move to the small brazier that is always kept ready for your specific tasks. You gently warm a prepared mixture of honey and soothing herbs, chamomile, comfrey, and lavender. The gentle, earthy scent begins to fill the room, a quiet challenger to the heavy atmosphere of pain. You approach the king. "Your Majesty," you murmur. He gives a slight, almost imperceptible nod. You kneel down on the cold floor and begin the delicate, practiced task of unwrapping the bandages on his leg. You work with the detached professionalism of a surgeon, your face, a mask of calm competence, showing no reaction to the grim reality of the wound beneath. You gently clean the area with a cloth soaked in warm wine, then you apply the new warm poultice, your touch firm but gentle. Finally, you wrap the leg again in fresh, clean linen strips. Throughout the entire process, the king is silent. His eyes closed, his breathing heavy. When you are finished, you rise. "The spiced wine, Thomas." He grunts, his voice a low, rough growl. You move to the sideboard and pour a goblet of his favourite claret, which you warm by holding the silver cup near the fire. You present it to him. He takes it in his great hand, the goblet looking like a child's toy. He takes a long, slow drink, staring into the dancing flames. The room is utterly silent, save for the crackle of the fire and the drumming of the rain against the window. You stand in your designated place a few paces away, waiting to be dismissed. But he does not dismiss you. He continues to stare into the fire, and then he begins to speak. His voice is different. It has lost its usual tone of command, of absolute authority. It is the weary, quiet voice of a man unburdening himself in the dark. "I remember a time," he murmurs, not looking at you, but speaking to the fire, to the room, to the night itself. "When this leg carried me to victory at the joust. I was the strongest man in England, in all of Christendom." He takes another sip of wine. Now it is my enemy. It is my jailer, an anchor of pain that chains me to this chair. You remain perfectly still, your hands clasped behind your back. You are a statue. You are a shadow. You are a vessel for his words. "They talk of my humours," he continues with a bitter, quiet laugh. "The physicians with their charts and their theories, they do not understand. The greatest ailment a king suffers from is not in his blood or his bile, it is in his memory." He turns his great head, and for the first time his gaze falls upon you. His eyes in the firelight are old and filled with a profound weariness. They say a king has no friends, only subjects. Do you believe that, Thomas? The question hangs in the air, a terrifying and impossible test. You know there is no right answer. You bow your head slightly. "I believe your Majesty has the loyalty of all of England." You say, your voice a soft, non-committal murmur. He lets out a short, sharp sigh that might be a laugh. "Loyalty," he says, turning back to the fire. "Yes, I have that in abundance, but it is a cold bedfellow." He drains his goblet. "I am tired, Thomas. I am so very tired of it all." The moment of vulnerability passes. He sets the empty goblet down with a heavy thud. The king is returning, the weary man retreating back behind the fortress of his crown. He gives a tired wave of his hand. It is your dismissal. You bow deeply, retrieve the empty goblet and retreat from the chamber, leaving him alone with the fire and the rain, and his own great lonely pain. As you walk back through the dark, silent corridors of the sleeping castle, you feel the immense weight of what you have just been given. You have seen the man behind the monster, the aching, regretful human behind the divine facade of the king. Your strange, intimate relationship has shifted once again. It is no longer just about service and power or smells and logistics. It has been touched by a moment of genuine, fragile humanity, and you realize that this confidence, this shared moment of weakness in the deep of the night, is a more dangerous and more precious secret than any matter of state you have ever overheard. It is a secret of the heart, and in your line of work you know that those are the most perilous secrets of all. The rare moment of human connection you shared with the king during his night of pain lingers with you for days. It has subtly changed the dynamic between you. There is a new layer to your relationship, an unspoken understanding. You have seen the man behind the crown, and he knows that you have seen him. This does not make your job any less strange or any less demanding, but it adds a new and complex weight to your duties. You feel less like a servant and more like a silent, sworn keeper of the king's own weary soul. You do not yet realize that you're about to become the keeper of a secret far more dangerous than a king's private grief. The morning begins like any other on this long and tedious royal progress. You have performed the complex engineering feat of getting the king dressed and have attended to his medical needs. Now the time has come for the first office meeting of the day in the privy chamber. You stand in your usual place, your posture perfect, your face a mask of serene neutrality, your pomander ready in your pocket should the need arise. You assume the day's business will be the usual fare, a report on the price of wool, a petition from a landowner, a discussion of the leaky roof at Windsor Castle. You are not prepared for what is about to happen. A visitor is granted access. It is not one of the usual ministers. It is the Duke of Norfolk, a man whose ambition is as vast as his ancient family name. He's the leader of the court's conservative faction, a man who despises the rise of low-born advisers and the new radical religious ideas trickling in from Germany. His presence here in this most private of spaces signals that the business to be discussed is of the highest and most delicate nature. The Duke enters and bows low, a gesture of deep reverence that does not quite mask the nervous energy radiating from him. The king, settled on his great reinforced close stool, merely grunts in acknowledgement. The air in the small opulent chamber becomes thick with unspoken tension. You discreetly move to a nearby brazier and sprinkle a pinch of dried rosemary onto the hot coals, a small professional act to freshen the air, a gesture that no one acknowledges but everyone in the room appreciates. The Duke does not waste time with pleasantries. He begins to speak in a low conspiratorial voice, his words intended only for the king's ears. But you are a part of the room's furniture, and you are an excellent listener. Your Majesty the Duke begins the matter of the Queen, the German mare. It continues to be a source of great embarrassment to the crown. He is speaking, of course, of Anne of Cleves, the king's newest and most disappointing wife. The king's silence is a cold, heavy stone in the room. The architect of this disastrous match, the Duke continues, his voice dropping, even lower, continues to fill your court with men of his own heretical persuasion. His ambition grows unchecked. He is a blacksmith's son who believes he can rule a kingdom. He is speaking of the Lord Chancellor Thomas Cromwell, the most powerful and most feared minister in England. You feel a cold knot tighten in your stomach. This is dangerous territory. The people are restless, Your Majesty. This new religion, it unsettles them. And Cromwell's new taxes, they are a festering boil on the body politic. The Duke pauses, choosing his next words with extreme care. And sometimes, Your Majesty, for the health of the entire body, a boil must be lanced before the poison spreads. The metaphor is as sharp and as clear as a headsman's axe. The Duke is not just complaining about his rival. He's subtly, carefully asking for permission to destroy him. You're frozen in place. Your training keeps your body perfectly still, your expression placid. But inside your mind is reeling. A conversation that will determine the fate of the most powerful man in England, a conversation that will change the course of history, is happening right here, right now. It is happening in a room that smells of rosewater and the king's failing health. The sheer, profound absurdity of the moment is almost overwhelming. You focus your gaze on a single loose thread on the corner of a great tapestry, making it the anchor for your entire world. The king does not speak for a long time. The only sounds are the crackle of the fire and the Duke of Norfolk's heavy, anxious breathing. Finally, the king shifts his great weight. He looks not at the Duke, but at his own hands. The man has been a useful servant, the king says, his voice a low, non-committal rumble. It is all the Duke needs to hear. The king did not defend him. He spoke of him in the past tense. It is a death sentence delivered in a quiet, off-hand comment. The Duke of Norfolk's face relaxes in a flicker of grim, triumphant satisfaction. He has what he came for. He bows deeply once more. Your Majesty is as always the soul of wisdom, he says, before retreating from the chamber, leaving you alone with the king and the monstrous secret that now hangs in the air between you. The king remains silent. He is finished with the matter. He has set the wheels of a great man's destruction in motion, and now he is simply a man who needs to complete his morning routine. He gestures to you and you move forward with the basin and the towel, your hands perfectly steady. You perform your duties with the flawless mechanical calm that is your trademark. But your mind is on fire. You now know that Thomas Cromwell, the great Lord Chancellor, is a dead man walking. You are one of perhaps 3 men in all of England who knows this for certain. This is not a secret about a gambling debt or a mistress. This is a secret that can get men killed, can start riots, can shake the foundations of the kingdom. If anyone ever discovered that you know that you were the witness, you would be seen as a threat, a liability to be removed. You finish your work. The king grunts in satisfaction and prepares to rise. You move to assist. The business of the morning is concluded. You have successfully received and filed away the most dangerous piece of information of your entire life. Your unwanted subscription has just delivered its most terrifying issue yet, and you realize with a chilling clarity that you have long since passed the point of being a simple observer. Whether you like it or not, you are now a player in the great bloody game. The secret of Thomas Cromwell's impending doom is a heavy, undigestible meal in your gut. You carry it with you through your daily routines, a cold stone of knowledge that makes the world seem sharper, more dangerous. You find yourself watching the other courtiers with a new clinical detachment. You see the ambitious men aligning themselves with the Duke of Norfolk and the oblivious ones who still seek Cromwell's favour, and you feel as though you are watching ghosts, men whose fates have already been decided in a quiet, odorous room they will never enter. Your proximity to the king has given you a terrible kind of foresight, and it is a lonely and frightening burden. You retreat more and more to the quiet sanctuary of your private office. Here, amidst your ledgers and your locked chests, you can almost pretend that the world is an orderly place of numbers and accounts. But the world has a way of finding you. One afternoon, a servant informs you that a visitor is waiting. A woman. This is highly unusual. Your business is almost exclusively with the men of the court. You grant her entry. She's the wife of a London wool merchant, a respectable woman dressed in the fine but sober clothes of the merchant class. Her face is etched with worry, but she carries herself with a quiet dignity. She gets straight to the point. Her husband's trading company, she explains, is on the brink of ruin. A new tax on exported wool, a policy championed by the powerful Duke of Norfolk's faction, to harm Cromwell's allies in the city, is strangling their business. She tells you she has tried all the proper channels. She has petitioned the King's Council. She has spoken to the city aldermen. She has pleaded with the tax collectors. All her pleas have fallen on deaf ears. She has come to you as her last resort. She does not ask you to speak to the king on her behalf. She knows that is not your place. Her request is more subtle. She hands you a rolled scroll, a petition. It is not a plea for mercy, but a carefully written document detailing the real-world economic consequences of the new tax, arguing that it will harm the Crown's revenues in the long run. Master Thomas, she says, her voice steady, I only ask that you might find an opportunity, a quiet moment, to simply place this document where His Majesty might see it. That is all. We ask only that he might read our words. You take the scroll, your mind races. This is a profound and dangerous request. To interfere in a matter of state policy, especially one tied to the great factions of the court, is to step onto a battlefield. The tax is Norfolk's policy. To act against it could be seen as siding with Cromwell, the man you know is a sinking ship. This is a path fraught with peril. It is the kind of risk that a wise man, a survivor like Way, would have avoided at all costs. And yet, you read the petition later that evening. Her arguments sound logical and persuasive. You know from your own sources, from the gossip of the dockworkers and the complaints of the merchants whose accounts you sometimes handle for the king, that what she says is true. The tax is not just cruel, it is foolish. You feel a flicker of sympathy, a stirring of a sense of justice you thought had been long buried under layers of professional cynicism. You're caught in a web of calculation. The risk to yourself versus the ruin of an honest family. The political danger versus the moral imperative. For days you do nothing. The scroll sits on your desk, a silent accusation. The merchant's wife returns a week later. She does not ask if you have succeeded. She simply comes to offer a small token of her family's esteem. She presents you with a small, beautifully crafted wooden casket inlaid with mother of pearl. You open it. It is not a bag of gold. A bribe like that would be too crude an insult to your position. It is something far more thoughtful, far more intimate. Inside, nestled on a bed of dark red silk, is a single small crystal vial. It is sealed with wax. The vial contains a tar of roses, a perfume oil so rare, so pure and so potent that a single drop can fill a room with the scent of 1,000 summer gardens. It is distilled in the faraway workshops of the Ottoman Empire, and its value is nearly equal to that of gold. You look at the small bottle, and you understand the brilliance of her gesture. This is a bribe of profound and perfect insight. She is not just trying to buy your influence. She is acknowledging the unspoken reality of your life. She is giving you a weapon for your own daily silent war. The gift says, I see you. I understand what you endure. please accept the finest armor I can offer. This gesture, more than any plea or any amount of gold, sways you. It is a sign of intelligence, of observation, of a deep understanding of your strange and singular world. You look at her, and your face is the usual mask of calm neutrality. You incline your head slightly. I will see if a suitable moment presents itself to bring this petition to the king's attention, you say. It is a promise of nothing, but it is enough. The suitable moment arrives 2 days later. You're in the privy chamber. The king is in a surprisingly good mood. His leg is giving him less pain than usual, and he won a large sum at cards the previous night. You have a stack of documents on a side table, mostly routine warrants and grants that require his signature. The merchant's petition is at the bottom of the pile. As you move from the table to the king's side, you perform a small, almost imperceptible act of clumsiness. Your sleeve seems to catch on the edge of the stack, and the documents slide and scatter across the floor. Clumsy fool, the king barks, though there is no real anger in his voice. 1,000 apologies. Your Majesty, you murmur as you kneel to gather the scattered papers. In the process of restacking them, you perform your small act of magic. You place the merchant's petition on the very top of the pile. You rise and present the stack to the king. The signature warrants your Majesty. He grunts, takes the documents, and idly, without thinking, he begins to read the one on top. You watch as his eyes scan the carefully written arguments. His expression does not change, but he reads the entire scroll. When he has finished, he puts it aside without comment and proceeds to sign the other documents. You don't know if you have succeeded. You don't know if the king will reconsider the tax, or if he will forget the petition the moment you leave the room. But you have made a choice. You have used your unique position, your knowledge of the king's moods, and a conveniently clumsy moment to tip the scales of justice, if only by a fraction of an inch. And you did it in part for a bottle of perfume. You feel a new, dangerous and exhilarating sense of your own agency. You're not just a shadow anymore. You're the hand that can sometimes make the shadow move. The seasons continue to turn, and with each passing year you feel a great and final change settling over the court. It is the slow, inexorable dimming of a great light. The sun of your world, the king, is beginning to set. The vibrant, dangerous and exhilarating court of his prime has faded, replaced by a quiet, anxious and melancholy world that revolves around a single sick room. The great royal progresses are a distant memory. The king is now largely confined to his private chambers, his great bulk-making movement a monumental effort, his leg a source of constant tormenting pain. The grand feasts and boisterous masques are over. The halls of the palace, once teeming with ambitious nobles and foreign ambassadors, are now quiet, their business conducted in hushed whispers. The entire mood of the kingdom seems to be dictated by the daily reports on the king's health reports that you more than anyone know to be overly optimistic. Your role, too, has been transformed. The days of wielding power through your control of the privy purse and your unique access have waned. The ministers and the dukes no longer seek you out with such desperate frequency, for the king has little energy for their great schemes and policies. The secrets you now keep are not of statecraft and love affairs, but of a more intimate and far sadder nature. You have become less of a gatekeeper and more of a caregiver. Your days are now consumed by the difficult, endless tasks of tending to a great suffering man. Your life is a quiet rhythm of service and comfort. You are the one who knows precisely how to arrange the velvet cushions to give his leg a moment's ease. You are the one who holds the silver cup of watered wine to his lips when his own hands tremble too much to hold it. You are the one who spends hours preparing and applying the warm herbal poultices to his wound. Familiar, sad battle against a foe you both know will never be defeated. Much of your time is spent in silence, simply being a steady, quiet presence in the room, while the king dozes fitfully in his great chair by the fire. You watch the rise and fall of his great chest. You listen to the sound of his laboured breathing. The fear you once had for him, the awe you felt for his immense power, has long since evaporated. It has been replaced by a strange, complicated and weary affection. You're bound to him not by ambition or loyalty in the traditional sense, but by a shared 30-year history of unparalleled intimacy. You have seen this man at his most powerful and at his most vulnerable. You know him as no other person on earth does. In his decline, there are still flashes of the old king like lightning from a fading storm cloud. There are moments of terrifying irrational rage where he will roar at an attendant for a perceived slight. There are moments of sharp, startling lucidity where he will ask you a pointed question about a financial matter, his mind as keen as it was 20 years ago. and sometimes there are moments of a quiet, sad clarity. One evening you are performing the familiar ritual of changing the dressing on his leg. He has been silent all day, lost in a fog of pain and memory. As you carefully wrap the fresh linen around the wound, he speaks, his voice a low, rough whisper. "You have a steady hand, Thomas," he murmurs, his eyes fixed on the fire. "I have had much practice, Your Majesty," you reply softly. He is quiet for a long time. Then he says, "You have seen the whole of it, haven't you? The rise and the fall. A dull play has it not been. You do not know how to respond. You simply continue your work, tying off the bandage with a neat practiced knot. All the wives," he says, his voice wistful, "all the wars, all the treaties and the turmoil, and it comes to this, a fat old man in a chair with a stinking leg and a kingdom full of vultures waiting for him to die." He turns his head and looks at you, his small piggy eyes surprisingly clear and intelligent. "You have been the only constant, Thomas, the only one who has seen it all and never fled. Are you a fool, or simply the most patient man in Christendom?" You meet his gaze. "I am your servant, Your Majesty," you say simply. It is the only true answer. A faint dry smile touches his lips. "Aye," he says. "That you are." The moment passes. He closes his eyes, his great body slumping further into the chair, and he drifts back into a fitful, pain-haunted sleep. You stand and watch him for a moment. The great Henry VIII, the terror of popes, the master of England, the colossus of your age. Now he is just a sick old man, and you are his nurse. You move quietly around the room, making sure the fire is banked just right, that his cup of water is within reach. The power, the secrets, the intrigue, it has all burned away like kindling, leaving only this quiet, somber duty in a still and silent room. You are no longer the king's shadow in the world of men. You are now the guardian of his final fading light. And you know with a deep and certain sadness that your long watch is almost over. The end, when it comes, is not a grand theatrical event. It is a slow, quiet fading like the last embers of a fire you have tended all night. The king now lies in his great bed, no longer having the strength to sit in his chair. The antechambers of the palace are crowded with the great lords and bishops of the realm, all waiting in hushed, anxious silence for the inevitable news. But they are not permitted in here. The final moments of the king's life are not for the politicians or the public. They are for the most intimate circle only. And you are at the centre of it. The physicians are present, but their work is done. They stand by helpless, their theories and Latin phrases useless against the final great ailment. Their role is now simply to bear witness, to be ready to make the official pronouncement. The Queen sits in a chair in the corner, her face pale, her prayers a constant silent movement of her lips. But you are the one at the bedside. Your hands are the last to offer comfort. Your voice is the last he will hear. You dip a soft linen cloth in a silver bowl of cool water and gently moisten the king's dry, cracked lips. You adjust the mountain of pillows behind his great head, trying to ease his laboured breathing. You are no longer performing a duty. This is a final act of simple human care for the man whose entire life, in all its glory and all its squalor, has been intertwined with your own for 3 decades. His eyes, which have been closed for hours, flutter open. They are cloudy and unfocused, no longer the sharp, intelligent eyes of a king, but the distant eyes of a man looking at a world beyond this one. For a moment they seem to find you, to recognize you. A flicker of something, gratitude perhaps, or just familiarity passes through them. A single faint breath escapes his lips, a sound no louder than a sigh. And then he is still. The room is suspended in a moment of profound, absolute silence. The great laboured breathing has stopped. The king is gone. The chief physician steps forward, performs a cursory examination, and then turns to the Lord Chamberlain, who has been waiting by the door. He gives a single solemn nod. Your watch is over. In that instant, your title, your purpose, your entire world for the last 30 years has ceased to exist. You are no longer the groom of the stool, for the stool no longer has a master. You step out of the quiet, heavy atmosphere of the death chamber and into the antechamber. The world has already changed. The Lord Chamberlain draws himself up to his full height and makes the ancient formal announcement. The whispers erupt into a flurry of motion. Courtiers rush to be the first to offer their allegiance to the new king, young Edward. The cry goes up in the palace corridors. The king is dead, long live the king. All eyes turn to the boy who is now the center of the universe. And you, for the first time in your adult life, are completely invisible. No one looks at you. No one needs anything from you. The impenetrable aura of your office has vanished. You are just another nobleman in the crowd, a ghost of the old regime. In the weeks that follow, you are rewarded for your long and loyal service. You are granted a new title, vast estates in the countryside. You are a wealthy and respected man. You retire from the court, leaving the noise, the intrigue and the smells behind forever. You find yourself one evening sitting in your own quiet study in your new country house. A clean, fresh breeze blows through the open window. You look back on your long, strange career, and a quiet, ironic smile touches your lips. You Thomas rose to become one of the most powerful and influential men in England. Not with a sword, nor with brilliant speeches in Parliament, nor with cunning legal arguments. You did it with a steady hand, a neutral expression, a strong stomach, and an expert's knowledge of the king's most private and pressing needs. And so your story as Thomas the King's shadow comes to its peaceful end. He has earned his rest, his quiet place in the countryside. And now you can embrace your own rest in your own quiet and comfortable world. His path to peace was through a lifetime of strange, demanding service. Your path is simpler. It is the simple act of letting go. He lived in a world of secrets and shadows. Your world tonight is one of open, honest peace. Let the memory of that distant, turbulent court fade away. There are no kings to serve, no secrets to keep. There is only the softness of your bed, the quiet of your room, and the gentle, steady rhythm of your own breathing. Your watch is over. Rest now. Sleep now.